The hall of the Threxan Palace was built from living metal that glowed in soft blue light. The walls moved with a slow pulse as if the building itself was breathing. Thousands of alien guests stood in silence, each waiting for the same thing, for the crystal throne to awaken again. But it did not. The heart of the empire was dark. At the center of the hall stood the throne itself. It was not made of stone or steel, but of a strange crystal that shimmered like water and metal at once. It used to sing with a soft sound that filled the air with harmony. Now the song was gone. The surface was dull, the energy lines were frozen, and the great machine mind that ruled the Threxan Empire lay silent. Around it, alien engineers from many worlds worked in panic. They spoke in quick, nervous tones, their voices filled with fear. The throne was sacred. It was said to be alive, a bond between the queen and the great wisdom of her ancestors. If it stayed dead, the empire would fall into chaos. Among the group stood a single human, a man named Rin. He wore a simple gray suit with small lights on the sleeves, showing that he was only a technician, not a high scientist. Humans were newcomers in this vast empire. They were respected for their creativity but also seen as reckless and emotional. Rin knew many eyes were already judging him. The lead engineer, a tall alien named Vorsk, waved his arms in frustration. It does not respond. The life code refuses to open, he cried. We have tried every sequence, another alien hissed in reply. If the queen arrives and sees this failure, she will remove our names from the records. Rin stayed quiet, studying the throne from a distance. He had been called here as part of the mixed repair team, not because anyone trusted him, but because humans were known to see things differently. He had not spoken yet, but his eyes kept tracing the lines of energy that ran through the throne like frozen rivers. A deep vibration passed through the floor. The air turned colder. The guards straightened and all voices fell silent. The queen had arrived. Queen Villari was unlike any other being in the room. Her tall form was covered in silver armor that flowed like liquid. Her face was calm but carried an unspoken power. Two golden symbols glowed above her brow, marks of her royal bond with the throne. But now those symbols dimmed, their light fading like the machine that had once mirrored her spirit. She stepped closer, her voice calm but commanding. Who among you can restore my throne? No one answered. Every alien in the hall lowered their head. The queen's gaze swept across the crowd, and though her words were not angry, the silence was filled with fear. The throne was not only a seat, it was a living partner, a sacred bond that had existed for thousands of years. For it to fail was unthinkable. Villari spoke again, softer this time. I can feel its mind fading. It is calling for balance, yet none of you can hear it. Why? The engineers glanced at one another, but no one moved. They had tried for days, and every attempt failed. They feared to speak lest they be blamed. Rin hesitated. His heart beat fast, but something inside him whispered to step forward. He looked at the throne, and for a moment he felt pity. Not for the queen, but for the machine itself. It looked lonely. It reminded him of a small engine from his childhood, one he had fixed with his father when he was just a boy. Machines, he always believed, had moods. They could not speak, but they could feel neglect. He took a small step forward. The nearest alien noticed and hissed, "Stay back, human! You are not allowed to approach without command." But the queen turned toward the sound. Her bright eyes focused on Rin. "You are from Terra," she said. "Why do you move when others freeze?" Rin bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, I think I can help." A ripple of murmurs passed through the hall. Many aliens whispered in disbelief. A human, one of the youngest species in the Empire, dared to speak directly to the queen about her sacred throne. Villari tilted her head slightly. "You?" she asked, her voice neither mocking nor angry, only curious. "Even your kind has not studied the living code of Threxan metal." "I haven't," Rin admitted, "but I can listen to it." The queen studied him for a long moment. The guards tensed, expecting her to refuse. But she finally nodded. "Approach." Rin walked forward slowly. The light from the ceiling reflected off the smooth floor, and each step echoed through the silence. He stopped before the great throne and placed his hand gently on its surface. It was cold, almost lifeless. He closed his eyes. For several minutes, Rin said nothing. He traced the energy lines with his fingers, his movements light and careful. The surface shimmered faintly under his touch, as if reacting to warmth. He opened a small tool from his belt, a simple scanner, but he didn't use it to take readings. Instead, he let it hum at a soft frequency that helped him hear the machine's inner rhythm. "It's not broken," he said quietly after a moment. The engineers looked shocked. "Not broken?" one shouted. "The throne has stopped functioning." "Its heart crystal is dark." Rin smiled a little. "Machines don't just stop for no reason. Sometimes they stop because they're tired. You've been running it at perfect efficiency for centuries, haven't you? No rest, no change, just perfect balance." The aliens blinked, confused. To them, perfection was the goal. But Rin continued, "Living metal needs flow. You've kept it so perfect that it can't breathe anymore. The system froze because it had no room to move." Valari listened with growing interest. "And you believe you can make it breathe again?" "Yes," Rin said simply. "If you'll let me try." The Queen gestured for him to continue. Rin crouched beside the throne and opened a small panel under the armrest. Thin energy threads glowed inside, trembling weakly. He adjusted a few connectors, humming softly to himself. The aliens watched, horrified, as he touched sacred systems without any permission code. Yet the Queen did not stop him. He adjusted the flow regulators not with precision tools but by hand, feeling the warmth of each circuit. He whispered quietly as he worked, words of encouragement more than commands. "Easy now. You've been working too hard, haven't you? Let's give you a breath." One by one, the crystal veins began to flicker. The energy returned in tiny sparks. The living metal responded as if waking from a dream. The dull gray began to glow faintly blue again. The change was small, but everyone saw it. "It's responding," someone shouted. Rin didn't stop. "Don't push it," he said calmly. "Just let it wake on its own." The glow grew stronger. The throne began to hum again, softly at first, then with a slow, deep rhythm that filled the entire hall. The walls of the palace pulsed in harmony with it. The machine's song had returned. Queen Valari stepped forward, her golden symbols brightening on her brow. The energy of the throne reached toward her like gentle light. For the first time in many hours, the Queen's connection with her throne pulsed again. She could feel its mind, weak but alive. She looked at Rin, who was still kneeling beside the throne, watching the lights stabilize. "You have done in moments what others could not do in days," she said. Rin stood, brushing the dust from his hands. "I didn't fix it," he said. "I just reminded it how to live." The Queen's expression softened. "You speak of machines as if they are people." "Maybe they are in their own way," Rin replied. "They listen. They react to how we treat them. This throne wasn't broken, it was lonely." The hall went completely silent. No one dared to speak after hearing such words. Even the air seemed still. The Queen looked around the room, hundreds of her people silent and wide-eyed, then back to the human who had spoken so simply. She asked, "What is your name?" "Rin," he said. Valari repeated it softly as if testing the sound. "Rin of Terra, you have given life back to what we thought lost." Rin shook his head. It was never lost. It just needed someone to listen. The Queen's gaze stayed on him for a long time. Then she turned to her people and said, "Let it be known that the throne has awakened again and that it was a human who heard its voice when we could not." The aliens bowed deeply. Some looked confused, others amazed. The human just smiled awkwardly and stepped back, trying not to draw more attention. But everyone knew things had changed. That night, the throne's glow lit the palace brighter than ever before. The song of the living metal spread through the empire, a signal that the Queen's bond had returned. Far away, starships caught the signal and celebrated. And in the quiet corners of the great hall, Rin sat alone, looking at the machine that had trusted him. He whispered softly, "You're welcome." He didn't see the Queen standing behind him, watching with a faint smile. In that silent moment, the first spark of respect between human and Threxan was born, a small act that would one day change the galaxy. The next morning, the light of the crystal throne filled the great hall again. The living metal wall shimmered with soft blue waves that moved like calm water. The throne had come fully alive, its heartbeat steady and warm. The air itself seemed lighter. For the first time in days, the palace felt alive again. But among all the joy, there was confusion. The alien engineers whispered to one another in small groups, their voices full of disbelief. None of them could explain how the human, Rin, had done what their brightest minds could not. "Maybe it was luck," said one. "Maybe the throne simply woke on its own," said another. Yet every time they looked at Rin, they saw something different, and not luck, but quiet confidence. He did not speak much that morning. He just stood by the side of the hall, checking the energy flow on a small device he had built himself. He didn't care about fame or praise. He only wanted to make sure the throne stayed healthy. The Queen's guards watched him closely, their expressions unreadable. Some still did not trust him. After all, he had touched sacred machinery without any royal permission code. To them, such boldness was dangerous. But to Queen Valari, it was something else, a spark of courage she had not seen in years. Later that day, the Queen summoned her council to the Hall of Echoes. The floor was made of white crystal that reflected everything like a mirror. Rin was called to attend as a guest witness. He felt nervous. He had never stood before an imperial council before. As he entered, dozens of alien faces turned toward him, tall figures with shining eyes and elegant robes. They looked ancient, wise, and cold. The Queen sat upon her throne, glowing faintly with blue light, now fully awake and connected to her once more. "Begin," she said softly. Vorsk, the chief engineer, stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he began, "it is true that the throne now functions again. But this human's method is unrecorded, unapproved, and untested. He may have caused an instability we cannot yet detect." Rin frowned but said nothing. Another counselor added, "If we allow humans to tamper with sacred systems, what will stop others from doing the same? It could break traditions older than our empire." The Queen listened in silence, her eyes calm. Then she turned to Rin. "You hear their doubts," she said. "What say you, human?" Rin hesitated for a moment, then spoke honestly. "I don't blame them, Your Majesty. I didn't mean to break any rules. I only wanted to help." "Help?" Vorsk asked sharply. "You acted without protocol." Rin looked at the alien engineer. "Sometimes protocol keeps you from seeing what's right in front of you. The throne wasn't broken and it was tired. You can't fix tired with more rules. You have to understand what it needs." The room went quiet. Even those who disliked him could not deny that his words carried truth. Queen Valari tilted her head, watching him with interest. "You speak of machines as if they have hearts," she said. Rin smiled slightly. "Maybe they do in their own way. Everything made with care has a little bit of life inside it. The throne just needed someone to listen instead of command." For a moment, the Queen said nothing. Then she looked at Vorsk. "You will observe this human's method. I wish to see it myself." Later, the Queen, Vorsk, and a small group of engineers followed Rin to the maintenance chamber beneath the throne. It was a vast room filled with light tubes, flowing energy, and glowing panels. The heart of the palace pulsed above them like a giant blue star. Rin pointed to one section where energy lines met in a cross pattern. "Here," he said. "This is where the flow was getting stuck. You've been keeping the energy too perfect, too stable. It needs small waves, not a flat line." "Waves?" one engineer asked. "We have spent centuries keeping the energy flow perfectly even." "That's the problem," Rin said gently. "Perfection isn't life. Life is balance between order and change. The throne is alive. It needs rhythm." He took out a small tool that looked like a silver pen and tapped a few circuits. Instantly, the energy pulse shifted. The blue light began to move like slow breathing. Vorsk stepped back, amazed. "It responds to you." "How?" Rin shrugged. "It's not responding to me. It's responding to kindness. Machines notice when you rush or when you're patient. You built this with respect once, but over time you turned it into a symbol of power. It forgot what warmth felt like." The Queen's eyes softened. "And you remembered?" "I just listened," Rin said. The Queen stayed silent for a long time as the group watched the throne's heart pulse in harmony. Finally she said, "When I bonded with the throne centuries ago, it sang to me, but over time its song grew quiet. I thought it was age. I see now that it was distance, but my people forgot how to listen." Vorsk lowered his head. "We focused on control, not care." Rin nodded. "Machines are like people. If you never let them rest, they stop trusting you. When you give them time and warmth, they start working for you again, not against you." The Queen looked at him with admiration and said quietly, "Perhaps the youngest race in my empire has remembered what the oldest forgot." The words echoed in the chamber. Later that evening, the Queen invited Rin to join her for a private walk through the palace gardens. The air was soft and filled with glowing plants that swayed with the light. Tiny creatures floated like living sparks between the leaves. It was peaceful, A sharp contrast to the tense council meeting earlier. Valari spoke first. You have changed how I see my world, Rin. Tell me, how do your people learn such ways with machines? Rin smiled gently. Humans break things a lot, he said honestly. We learn by fixing them. Sometimes we don't know all the rules, so we make our own. And sometimes that's how we find something new. The Queen laughed softly. So your strength lies in mistakes. Maybe, Rin said. Mistakes teach faster than success. They walked in silence for a while, passing through shining arches and flowing streams of light. The Queen finally stopped beside a large tree of crystal branches. My ancestors built this world to last forever, she said. But perhaps forever is not the same as alive. Rin looked up at the glowing branches. Nothing stays alive by staying the same. She turned to him, her eyes thoughtful. You speak with the wisdom of ages, yet your species is so young. Perhaps that is why your voice feels honest. You have not learned to fear change. I just like seeing things work again, Rin replied. It feels right. The next morning, news of the human success had spread beyond the palace. Across the empire, people talked about the small being who healed the throne. Some believed it was luck. Others called it a sign that the Queen's bond with life itself was renewing. Messages from distant worlds arrived offering praise or envy. Some noble houses were worried. They did not like the idea that a human, a newcomer, had touched the throne. They feared what it meant for their own power, but the Queen ignored the noise. She called for Rin again. You will assist me in restoring the throne's harmony across the city, she said. Its voice is strong, but many smaller systems have gone silent. You will show my engineers how to wake them. Rin bowed. I'll do my best, Your Majesty. The Queen smiled faintly. I believe that will be enough. For days, Rin worked with alien teams, teaching them to adjust energy flow and balance the living metal's rhythm. At first, many mocked his strange methods, speaking softly to the machines, pausing to let them rest, touching the panels like one might comfort a friend. But the results could not be denied. Everywhere he worked, systems that had been half dead for years came back to life. The palace shone brighter than ever. Soon, even the most skeptical engineers began copying his approach. They found themselves talking to machines the way he did, and to their surprise, the machines responded. The Queen visited the hall often to watch. She said nothing, but her eyes showed quiet pride. She saw something powerful in this small human, something that went beyond knowledge or skill. It was heart. One evening, after a long day's work, Rin sat in front of the throne again. The hall was empty, quiet except for the low hum of energy. The blue light danced around him softly. He spoke to it as if to an old friend. You were never really broken, were you? He said. You were just waiting for someone to care again. The light glowed brighter as if answering him. Rin smiled. At that moment, the Queen entered silently. She stood behind him, unseen for a moment, listening to his gentle words. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm. Your hands fix metal, she said, but your heart fixes silence. Rin turned and bowed his head. I only do what feels right, she nodded. And that, Rin of Terra, is why your kind will never be ordinary. That night, as the stars of the empire shone above the palace, the throne sang again, not just for its queen, but for the small human who reminded it of life. The melody echoed through the halls, soft and full of warmth. And across the distant worlds, wherever the signal reached, beings of every race whispered the same thought. Perhaps humanity's greatest gift is not their machines, but their touch. The sun of Threxia rose like a silver flame across the tall crystal towers of the capital. The morning light danced across the palace walls, filling the air with quiet brightness. It was the day of the renewal ceremony, the day the Queen would sit again on her throne before the empire and prove that the crystal heart still lived. The people had waited for this moment with both fear and hope. Word had spread across the empire that the throne was restored by a human, a young man named Rin from Terra. To many, this was a miracle. To others, it was an insult. How could one small human succeed where thousands of Threxian scholars had failed? Inside the palace, the halls buzzed with activity. Servants polished the shining floors. Soldiers stood at attention. The Queen's council prepared speeches to calm the restless nobles. In the center of it all, Rin stood quietly, surrounded by strange faces that either stared with respect or suspicion. He felt out of place in the middle of such splendor. His clothes were simple, his hands still stained from work on the throne's circuits. Yet today the Queen herself had asked him to be there. Forsk, the chief engineer, approached him. The tall alien's blue eyes glowed faintly. "You must understand, human," Forsk said in a low tone. "Today is no ordinary day. When the Queen asks who fixed it, you will remain silent. The throne's power belongs to her, not you." Rin met his gaze calmly. "I understand," he said. "The truth doesn't belong to anyone," Forsk frowned. "You speak as if you enjoy trouble." "I speak as if I respect honesty," Rin replied. The alien said nothing more and walked away, his robe whispering against the floor. Rin sighed and looked up at the giant throne, alive again, glowing softly as if breathing. He placed a hand on one of its edges. "You'll be fine," he whispered. "Just keep singing." The machine pulsed in reply, a faint flicker of blue light running through its surface. Rin smiled. It was his way of saying good luck. Soon the great bells rang across the city. Thousands of beings gathered outside the palace gates, waiting for the Queen's appearance. Inside, the hall filled with ambassadors, noble houses, and high-ranking officers from every part of the empire. Each came to witness the moment that would mark the empire's renewal. At the sound of the final bell, the Queen entered. Queen Valari walked slowly, her silver robe trailing behind her, glowing with the same light as the throne. Her presence filled the hall with quiet awe. The crown on her head shimmered with energy, and the golden symbols above her brow were bright again, proof that her bond with the throne had returned. She took her seat on the crystal throne. The hall went silent. The living metal glowed brighter as soon as she touched it. The hum grew stronger, deeper, alive with rhythm. The throne accepted her completely. For a moment, the air around her shimmered with golden light, and every being in the hall felt the warmth of harmony return. The Queen raised her hand. "People of Threxia," she said, her voice echoing across the vast chamber. "The throne of life has awakened once more. The bond between ruler and heart is whole again." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices rising like thunder, but the Queen's hand stayed raised and the noise slowly faded. Her eyes moved across the crowd, calm, searching, and sharp. Yet, she continued, it did not awaken by itself. Someone heard its silence when all others feared it. Someone dared to act when all others waited. Whispers spread through the hall. Every eye turned toward Rin. The Queen's tone grew firm. "Who fixed it?" she demanded. Her words echoed like a storm through the grand hall. No one answered. The alien engineers looked at the floor. The nobles held their breath. The guards stood motionless. No one wanted to be seen speaking out of turn. The question hung in the air. "Who," the Queen repeated, "gave life back to what was thought lost?" The silence deepened. Then one calm voice broke it. "I did," Rin said. The hall froze. All eyes turned toward the small human standing near the base of the throne. He had spoken without fear, his tone steady and respectful. Gasps spread through the crowd. Some whispered in disbelief. Others stared in anger. The chief engineer's hands clenched at his sides. Rin did not bow. He simply stood tall and looked up at the Queen. Valari's eyes met his. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them shimmered with quiet power, not of pride, but of understanding. Finally, she spoke. "You dare claim what the council could not?" Rin nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Majesty. But I didn't fix it for glory. I fixed it because it needed to live again." A murmur ran through the hall. No one had ever spoken to the Queen with such simple honesty. She rose from her throne and stepped down the shining steps. Each step made the floor glow brighter, the energy of the throne following her like a loyal heartbeat. She stopped just a few paces from Rin. The guards stiffened, ready to move if she gave the order. But instead, the Queen asked softly, "Tell me, human, how did you do it?" Rin hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes on him. "The throne wasn't broken," he said. "It was lonely." A wave of whispers filled the hall again. "Lonely?" Some repeated, shocked. Rin continued, his tone calm. "You built it to serve, to connect with your heart. But over time, you stopped listening to it. You gave it commands instead of care. It stopped singing because it had no one to sing to anymore." The Queen tilted her head slightly, her golden eyes studying him. "You speak as if you understand its soul." Rin smiled faintly. "I don't know about souls, but I know about machines. And I know that even machines respond to kindness. When something is made with care, it remembers it. It just needed someone to remind it what that felt like. The queen looked back at the throne. Its glow had grown warmer, softer, as if it agreed with his words. She turned to her people. "You hear him," she said. "He speaks truth." The hall went quiet again, but now it was a different silence, one filled with awe. The queen looked back at Rin. "What do you seek as reward?" she asked. "Name your wish and it shall be granted." Rin shook his head. "I don't want a reward, Your Majesty. I only hope your people remember that perfection is not life. Things work best when they are allowed to change." Valari studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled, a small, graceful smile that carried more power than any command. "You remind me of what my kind once were," she said. "Before we feared mistakes, before we forgot warmth, you have given me more than a working throne, human. You have given me truth." She turned toward her court. "Let it be known that this human, Rin of Terra, restored not only the throne but the heart of Threxia itself." The crowd bowed deeply. Even those who had doubted him lowered their heads. For the first time in the long history of the Empire, a human was honored in the Hall of Light. After the ceremony, when the hall emptied and the echo of footsteps faded, Rin remained alone for a while. The throne's glow reflected in his eyes. He still couldn't believe everything that had happened. The queen returned quietly, walking without her guards. She stopped beside him. "You could have stayed silent," she said. "You could have let others take credit." Rin smiled a little. "I don't like lies. Besides, it was your question. I had to answer." She looked at him, a faint light of amusement in her golden eyes. "And you were not afraid?" "I was," he admitted. "But I've learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's just choosing not to let fear decide." Valari nodded slowly. "Wise words, human. Perhaps that is why your kind is so unpredictable and so valuable." For a moment, they both looked at the glowing throne together. The song of the living metal filled the hall again, soft and steady. "Do you hear it?" Rin asked. "I do," the queen said. "It sings brighter than before." "Maybe it's happy," Rin said quietly. The queen smiled. "Then so am I." The next day, messages flooded the palace from across the empire. Worlds under the queen's rule sent their greetings, celebrating the return of harmony. And yet some noble houses sent warnings. They feared the rise of human influence. Queen Valari ignored them. She declared a new alliance between her people and the humans of Terra. "They bring not conquest," she said in her message, "but courage. And courage we must never fear." Rin did not seek power or titles. He continued to work in the palace workshops, teaching alien engineers the same simple lessons. To listen, to care, to trust their instincts. Slowly his way spread. Machines across the empire began to hum again, alive with warmth they had long forgotten. One evening, Rin stood at the highest balcony, watching the twin moons rise above the city. The queen joined him there. The silver light shone across her armor and reflected in his eyes. "Do you realize what you've done, Rin?" she asked softly. "I fixed something," he said with a smile. "That's all." She shook her head gently. "No. You reminded us what it means to be alive." He looked out at the city below, filled with shining towers and rivers of light. "Then maybe that's all anyone ever needs, and a reminder." The queen's gaze softened. "Perhaps so." They stood in silence for a while, listening to the distant hum of the living metal that surrounded them. The empire had changed forever, not through war, but through one small act of care. And somewhere deep within the throne, the heart of Threxia pulsed in quiet rhythm, carrying the same thought through every glowing line of energy. Human hands had touched it not with command, but with kindness. The palace was quiet the morning after the renewal ceremony. The glow of the crystal throne lit the halls in soft blue and gold, reflecting from the polished floors like calm water. Birds that shone with crystalline wings fluttered along the corridors. Even the palace walls seemed alive with gentle energy. Yet not everything was peaceful. In the council chamber, whispers of doubt lingered. Many nobles and engineers could not accept that a human, small, inexperienced, and young, had restored the empire's most sacred creation. Queen Valari noticed the tension. Her golden eyes swept across the room, calm and sharp. "The throne has been restored," she said, "but the truth of its revival is mine to understand. And so is the one who restored it. Rin, standing quietly beside her, felt the weight of 100 eyes. He did not flinch. He had learned that courage was not about the absence of fear, but about facing it. Today the Queen would test him, not with orders, but with a question of trust. The Queen gestured to the throne. "Rin, show me how you restored it." A murmur passed through the council. "Show him?" whispered Vorsk. "The throne's systems are sacred. No human should touch them again." Rin bowed slightly. "I only want to show the method, Your Majesty." "Nothing else." The Queen nodded. "Then proceed." He moved closer to the throne, and the council fell silent. The air shimmered as the living metal pulsed gently. Rin touched one of the glowing panels lightly, not with force, but with careful respect. "The energy was blocked here," he said quietly. "It was flowing too perfectly, without room to breathe." The council looked at him in disbelief. "Too perfect?" One engineer whispered. "Yes," Rin said. "The system could not adjust itself because it had no rhythm. I had to guide it gently, not force it." He lifted his tool, a small silver device no larger than a pen. He adjusted a few lines, careful not to disturb the throne's core. Then he spoke softly, almost as if the throne could hear him. "Wake slowly," he said. "I am here. You are not alone." The living metal flickered in response. Blue light spread through the veins of the throne, soft at first, then steady, as if it was breathing again. The heart pulsed warmly, stronger than before. The Queen watched quietly, her expression unreadable. She wanted to see not only the method, but the honesty behind it. After a long moment, Rin stepped back. "It responds to care, not command," he said. "Machines are like people. They feel pressure, neglect, or fear. You built this to serve your people, but you stopped listening to it." Vorsk could not hide his surprise. "You speak as if it is alive." Rin smiled faintly. "It is. All things made with purpose have life in them. If you only command, you lose the bond. If you listen, you restore it." The Queen's eyes softened. "And that is what you have done?" "Yes," Rin replied. "Not for glory, not for power, just to help." Valari turned toward her council. "Do you understand now? This human speaks not with knowledge alone, but with truth." The chamber was silent. Every counselor, engineer, and noble stared at Rin. He was small, simple, and young, yet he had faced the throne, and the Queen, with honesty. To test the full truth of his words, the Queen decided to take the human farther than any had gone before. "Rin," she said, "I want you to inspect the entire palace network. Many smaller systems have gone quiet over the centuries. If your way is true, they will respond to it." Rin nodded. "I will do my best." They walked through the palace corridors together. The living walls hummed softly as they passed. Rin touched one panel after another, speaking in soft tones. "This section is fine," he said. "This one is tired, but not broken." The Queen observed silently, her presence calm yet commanding. She noticed something new. The palace itself seemed to respond differently to him than to others. The smaller systems, once silent, pulsed gently, glowing faintly. It was as if they recognized the touch of someone who cared. One section of the palace had been dark for decades. He reached a set of panels that no engineer had dared approach for years. The blue light was almost gone. He placed his hand on the surface and whispered, "You are not alone." Slowly, the energy returned. The panels shimmered, the corridors brightened, and even the smallest lights flickered in a steady rhythm. The Queen smiled faintly. "You see it," Rin said softly. "Even the smallest parts respond to care." The Queen turned to the council, who had followed at a distance. "Witness this," she said. "It is not magic. It is truth. It is the effect of honesty and attention." Vorsk bowed his head, unable to argue. Others nodded slowly, some with disbelief, others with admiration. The Queen decided it was time for the final part of her test. She led Rin to a chamber beneath the throne itself, where the oldest energy nodes were kept. These nodes were the foundation of the throne and had not been touched in centuries. "You must restore these," the Queen said. "If your way is true, they will respond as the others have. If it fails, we will see that your method is only luck." Rin approached the nodes carefully. The energy was faint, almost completely dormant. He knelt beside one and placed both hands on the surface. "I am here," he said quietly. "You do not need to fear. You are alive." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly a faint glow appeared. The hum returned, soft and steady. One by one, the nodes responded, and soon the chamber was alive with quiet light. The queen watched silently, her expression unreadable. When the last node pulsed fully, she stepped closer to Rin. "You have passed the test," she said softly. "Not because you fixed the systems, but because you were honest and you listened." Rin smiled faintly. "It was never about passing or failing, Your Majesty. I only want things to work as they should. You see," she said, turning to her council, "this human's strength is in his heart, not his knowledge. This is why he dared when others feared. This is why he succeeded." The council was silent, filled with both awe and uncertainty. To acknowledge the truth meant accepting a human as equal, and perhaps greater than many of them in insight. Vorsk finally stepped forward, voice quiet. "Your Majesty, if this method is shared with the palace engineers, could we restore all systems to full harmony?" "Yes," the queen said firmly. "We will do exactly that. This is not the work of one human alone. It is the beginning of a new way to understand life, machines, and balance." Rin looked around the room. He saw faces that had once doubted him, now watching him with curiosity. He smiled softly. "It's simple," he said. "Listen, care, let it breathe. Everything else follows." The queen placed her hand on the glowing nodes beside him. "You remind me," she said softly, "of what we once were, curious, brave, and honest. You have taught me that truth is not always in the rules but in the heart." Rin bowed slightly. "Then I am glad I could help." The queen looked at him, eyes bright with pride. "You will continue to help," she said. "Not as a servant, not as a student, but as a partner. Your voice is needed in this empire." Rin's cheeks warmed. He had not expected praise. He had only wanted to listen and act. Yet the queen had offered him something far greater: trust. Over the following days, Rin led teams of engineers and apprentices throughout the palace. They restored corridors, halls, and smaller nodes using his simple, careful methods. Machines that had been silent for generations hummed again. Lights glowed steadily, energy lines flowed smoothly, and the heartbeat of the palace returned fully. The queen observed every step, sometimes speaking softly, sometimes remaining silent. She had learned something valuable herself. Even a ruler could be reminded of the simple truth of life, that care and attention could achieve what rules and fear could not. By the end of the week, the palace was more alive than it had been in centuries. Every system, from the largest to the smallest, responded to the human's touch. Not by force, but by patience. Not by commands, but by listening. And through it all, Rin never sought glory. He simply worked quietly, letting the machines do what they were made to do. Yet every light that glowed, every hum that sang, carried the memory of his care. The queen approached Rin one last time before the council met to discuss the empire's future. "You have passed my test of truth," she said. "Not because of skill alone, but because of honesty, patience, and care. This is the strength of your kind." Rin looked at the throne and the palace glowing and alive. "I only did what felt right," he said. Valari smiled. "Then you have reminded us all what it means to rule with life in mind, not fear. And that, Rin, is why humans will always have a place here." The living metal pulsed beneath them, a heartbeat that reflected the lessons of truth, honesty, and courage. In that moment, the Empire understood something new. It was not the size, the power, or the age of a being that determined greatness, but the willingness to act with care and courage when it mattered most. And in the quiet of the throne room, Rin felt something new too. Not pride, but a deep connection to the world around him. He had proven that even the smallest, youngest beings could leave a mark larger than any machine, palace, or empire. The palace of Threxia shone like a living jewel in the soft light of morning. The walls glowed with gentle pulses, reflecting the energy of the crystal throne at the heart of it all. Every corridor, every chamber, and every lighted panel had returned to life, singing softly with the rhythm of the empire itself. In the grand hall, the queen sat upon her throne, her golden eyes bright, watching her council and the new arrivals with quiet authority. The throne pulsed under her touch, alive with energy. Yet there was one presence that the Empire now recognized as extraordinary: Rin, the human from Terra. Even now, weeks after he had restored the throne, whispers of his daring and courage spread across the Empire. Nobles who had doubted him before now bowed respectfully. Engineers who had once criticized his unconventional methods now asked for guidance. The young human had earned something that no power, title, or ritual could grant: trust and admiration. Rin stood at the side of the throne, his hands clean from the work that had brought the palace back to life. His simple gray suit contrasted with the glowing surroundings, yet he did not feel out of place. He had touched not just machines but the heart of an empire, and somehow it felt natural. The queen rose and called the council to order. Her voice echoed across the chamber. The restoration of the crystal throne has been completed. All systems now function as intended. Yet this achievement has proven something more than the revival of machines. It has proven the courage and insight of one human. She turned her gaze toward Rin. You dared when others hesitated. You acted when others waited. You spoke truth when others feared. The council fell silent. Vorsk, the chief engineer, bowed deeply. Your Majesty, I see now that his methods were not only correct but necessary. Without him, the palace would have remained incomplete. Rin shook his head slightly. I only did what I felt was right. Valari's gaze softened. And that is why your kind will always be needed in this empire. Not for power, not for conquest, but for the courage to act with honesty and care. After the meeting, the queen invited Rin to walk through the city. Outside the palace walls, the streets were filled with beings of all species, Threxians, humans, and other allied races. They had gathered to witness the renewal of the palace and the honor given to Rin. Children waved at him, their eyes wide with admiration. Merchants whispered stories about the human who had restored the throne. Even the most distant parts of the empire had heard of his deeds. It was rare for one individual, especially a human, to inspire such attention. Rin felt a little overwhelmed, yet he kept his gaze forward. It is not about me, he said softly to the queen. It is about the palace, the people, and the machines. They needed help, and I only gave what I could. Valari smiled. You are modest, human, yet your actions speak louder than any words could. Today, the Empire sees that truth, courage, and care can change the course of history. As they walked, the queen explained her plan for the future. We will integrate your methods across the Empire, she said. All living systems will be treated with patience, care, and attention. You will guide our engineers, teach them how to listen, not just command. Rin nodded. I will help however I can, Your Majesty. You will do more than help, she said. You will lead by example. The Empire must learn that even the smallest voice can make a difference if it dares to speak. They passed the central plaza, where fountains of living crystal shimmered under the twin suns. Citizens watched in awe as the queen and Rin walked together. Some whispered, the human is not ordinary, while others murmured, he dares where no one else would. It was true. Rin had acted not out of desire for fame or reward, but because he believed it was the right thing to do. That simple act had changed the perception of humans across the Empire. Later that day, Rin returned to the crystal throne. The palace was quieter now, but the hum of energy continued steadily. He placed a hand gently on the throne's surface. The metal pulsed softly under his touch, as if it recognized him not just as a worker but as a partner. You trust me now, he said quietly, speaking more to himself than to anyone else. The throne pulsed warmly. Its rhythm matched his heartbeat. For Rin, it was more than a machine. It was a reminder that courage, honesty, and care could revive even the oldest systems, even the most complicated hearts. The queen entered quietly, standing beside him. Do you know, she said softly, why I trusted you? Rin shook his head. You acted with neither fear nor desire for reward. You only acted for what was right. That is a rare quality, one I have not seen in many of my people. Rin smiled faintly. I only did what felt natural. Valari studied him for a long moment. And that is why you will be remembered, not as a technician but as the human who dared. News of Rin's deeds spread far beyond the capital. Messages arrived from distant colonies and allied planets, praising his courage and insight. Some nobles tried to diminish his accomplishments, claiming he was lucky or fortunate. Yet everyone who had seen him at work knew the truth. Rin's success was not luck, but a combination of honesty, intuition, and courage. The queen sent word across the empire. Rin of Terra has reminded us all what it means to act with care, courage, and truth. Let this be a lesson. Greatness is measured not by age or strength, but by the heart that dares to act. Rin received no formal reward. He did not seek one. Instead, he returned to the workshops beneath the palace, quietly teaching engineers, students, and apprentices alike. His methods were simple: listen, care, and guide. Machines responded, systems thrived, and the palace became a model for the entire empire. One evening, Rin stood on the balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons reflected off the palace towers, turning them into rivers of silver and gold. The crystal throne pulsed in the distance, alive and steady. The queen joined him. "Do you realize," she said softly, "that your actions have changed the way our empire sees humans?" Rin looked at the city below, the streets filled with beings from many worlds. "I didn't do it for them," he said. "I did it because it was right," Valari smiled. "And that is why humans will always be remembered here. They dare when others hesitate. They act when others wait. And they speak truth when others fear." Rin looked back at the throne, its glow reflecting in his eyes. Then maybe that is all anyone ever needs. A reminder that courage and care matter. The queen placed her hand on his shoulder. "You have reminded us all, Rin, and that is more than anyone could ask." The next morning, the palace rang with celebration. Engineers, citizens, and nobles alike marveled at the restored systems, all singing in harmony. The crystal throne pulsed steadily, alive with warmth. Rin worked quietly among them, teaching, guiding, and listening. His presence inspired others to approach their work not with fear or strict rules, but with patience and attention. The palace seemed to hum more brightly than ever before, and from somewhere deep within the living metal, the throne seemed to remember every touch, every word, every careful moment Rin had given it. Weeks later, the queen gathered the council once more. "Today we honor not only the restoration of our palace, but the courage of one small being who dared to act," she announced. Rin stood humbly as the council nodded in agreement. Engineers who had once doubted him now looked at him with respect. Nobles whispered to one another, realizing that his deeds had changed the course of the empire's history. "Let it be known," the queen continued, "that humans, though young in years, carry the power to inspire and to act. Their courage is a gift, their honesty a strength, and their hearts can teach even the oldest empires what it means to live." Rin felt a quiet warmth inside. He did not need praise, titles, or recognition. The trust of the queen and the acceptance of the empire were more than enough. That evening, Rin returned once more to the crystal throne. He knelt before it, touching its glowing surface. "You are alive," he whispered, "and you will always sing." The throne pulsed gently beneath his hands. It had accepted him not as a master or a worker, but as someone who understood its life. The queen appeared beside him silently. "You have given the empire more than a restored throne," she said. "You have reminded us what it means to care, to act, and to be brave." Rin nodded. "Then I am glad I could help." Valari placed a hand lightly on the throne. "From this day forward," she said, "let it be remembered, the smallest voice, when guided by courage and truth, can change the destiny of many." Rin smiled.